Welcome into Dolphins Today. I am your host, Jake Riepma, and we begin with breaking news that we are still uncovering every detail associated with what's going on. But Dolphins star wide receiver Tyreek Hill, we know he's just been absolutely incredible all season long, leading the NFL with over 1,700 yards receiving. But some unfortunate news surrounding the Dolphins star wide receiver today. According to WSVN Channel 7 News in Miami, firefighters battling a fire at the home of Miami Dolphins wide receiver Tyreek Hill. And the images are a little bit disturbing. You see the mansion on fire there. The good news is it has been confirmed that nobody was injured. Nobody was in the house. And Tyreek Hill is aware of the situation. In fact, the Miami Dolphins he left practice from the Miami Dolphins facility and was with his wife, Kita Vaquera, and the two of them obviously were assessing the situation while in a very safe manner. So nobody was in the house at the time of the fire. Firefighters on the scene, as well as the authorities determining a cause and ensuring that there's no more hot spots and things of that nature associated with the fire. But it is under control at this time, and really unfortunate news surrounding the Dolphins star wide receiver. But I think the good thing is that nobody was injured in the fire and nobody was inside at the time of the fire. So unfortunate there, but it is news that associates with the Miami Dolphins and their star wide receiver Tyreek Hill. And with that said, I think it's important to note that nobody was in the house at the time of the fire. Nobody was hurt. And at this point, now it becomes assessing the damage and moving on from there. Now, other news surrounding the Miami Dolphins. They did work out multiple free agents this week in preparation for that Week 18 showdown against the Buffalo Bills. So a number of different free agents worked out for the Dolphins, starting with T.J. Carter, the defensive end. He was undrafted out of Kentucky in 2020, where he then signed with the Arizona Cardinals. And what's interesting about T.J. Carter is he was able to kind of continue his career and really provide some solid production for the Michigan Panthers in the UFL, where he registered 24 tackles and 2.5 sacks in just 9 games. And then in 2022, he did play in 2 games for the Rams, but did not record a stat. So when you think about some of the injuries that have happened with the Dolphins, specifically to that defensive end position, T.J. Carter could be a guy that the Dolphins sign here in the coming days. Now, that being said, he, again, undrafted free agent out of Kentucky in 2020, and not exactly a showstopper per se, but certainly someone that the Dolphins could add for depth reasons. So, now, that being said, I need your help. Would you like the Dolphins to beat the Buffalo Bills? Of course you would. So like this video. You don't want to be the one to jinx it. Don't just click pass. You got to like the video. It's scientifically proven to help the Miami Dolphins win, and we need your help for that Week 18 game against the Buffalo Bills. Dolphins also entertained a couple of others, including Davion Nixon, who's 25 years old and was a 2021 fifth-round pick out of Carolina. He did end up playing in 14 games with the Panthers, where he registered 15 tackles and half a sack, but he was released in 2023 by the Panthers. Seattle picked him up immediately, but then released him also, as he did not register any production for the Seattle Seahawks. So another guy that could add some depth to the defensive line and more of an interior guy playing at the defensive tackle position. On the offensive side, the Dolphins worked out B.J. Wilson, an offensive tackle who's 25 years old, also undrafted and a free agent by the Panthers. He attended Quincy University. You probably never heard of Quincy University. It's a Division II institution in Illinois, and I only add this because he's the only player to ever reach the NFL from Quincy. And what's also interesting, he was waived by Carolina prior to the beginning of the season. You guys know I played a little ball in my day. I played against the Quincy Hawks way back in the day and made the 13-hour bus hike from my school to Quincy University. But shout out to B.J. Wilson and Quincy University. He was one of the guys that the Dolphins worked out this week on the offensive line side of things. So that being said, majority of these guys would be added for depth purposes, most likely practice squad guys. But if you had to pick one to sign, let me know in the comments. If you want TJ Carter, type TJ. If you want Nixon, go ahead and type DN, or if BJ Wilson's who you want to add to the offensive line. Obviously, they've been decimated with injuries all season long. Go ahead and type BJ. For me, it's real simple. The defensive line needs a lot of help, and it's not because of a lack of production. It's simply because the lack of bodies that are left available because of all the injuries. And we know the latest chip to fall there is Bradley Chubb, but the interior defensive line also not a ton of depth. Zach Zeeler, who actually missed practice today with an illness, should be fine by the time Sunday comes around, has been having a hell of a season, as has Christian Wilkins. But Raekwon Davis and Deshaun Hand haven't really played a ton behind them. And if you've watched Hard Knocks, you know Zach Zeeler and Christian Wilkins are the salt and pepper that make this defense go, but there hasn't really been a lot of depth behind them. Emmanuel Ogbah and Melvin Ingram will have increased roles more on the edge side of things as outside linebackers, of course, with Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips gone for the rest of the season. Jalen Phillips blew the Achilles against the Jets on Black Friday. Bradley Chubb tore the ACL against the Ravens in Week 17. So that means Andrew Van Ginkel and Emmanuel Ogbah, throw in Melvin Ingram there as well. Those guys got to step it up if the Dolphins defense will continue to have success. Now, coming up, we've got more Dolphins news to get into, as well as some quotes from Mike McDaniel. But I want to give a shout out to today's presenting sponsor, Factor Meals. And my goodness, who can believe it's 2024 already? So that means it's time to get started on your resolutions, and Factor Meals can help so that you're ready for the new year. Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes all the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. So you can skip the grocery store, skip the prep work, and oh yeah, take out the cooking fatigue and all the dishes as well. And why not just get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door? There's over 35 meals to choose from per week, and that includes options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and so much more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons. You'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions, because it's all about making choices that lead to success, and that's where Factor Meals come in, America's #1 meal delivery service. So don't wait. Head to factormeals.com/FinsChat50 and use that code FinsChat50 to get 50% off, and that's code FinsChat50 at factormeals.com/FinsChat50 to get 50% off. We're not even kidding about that. 50% off. That is a good deal, my friends. So don't wait. Factormeals.com/FinsChat50. I'll tell you this, my favorite part, delivered straight to your door. So it literally takes everything out. It just takes 2 minutes to heat up. Also, pro tip here, go ahead and order that Chipotle pork chop. It is to die for. But factormeals.com/FinsChat50. And oh yeah, by the way, we've got the link right in the chat because we love you and we care about you here on Dolphins Today. Now, more news and rumors to get to as it relates to the Dolphins and what the team's plan is moving forward. And let's talk a little about some of the injury updates, starting with linebacker Jerome Baker, who we know was injured against the Washington Commanders, and we know this defense could really use him. And Marcel Louis-Jacques, one of the Dolphins beat writers, reporting that Jerome Baker has returned to practice, which we know that means opens up a 21-day window for him to be activated off of IR. Now, that being said, to be activated off IR would then qualify as the Dolphins' 8th and final activation. That being said, it would end the season for guys like Isaiah Wynn, Savon Ahmed, and the other guys on IR. But if you know this Dolphins team, Jerome Baker is the most likely candidate to be that 8th and final activation, because you look at the production, he has been a staple in the middle of Vic Fangio's defense. He has the 2 interceptions, the 2 sacks, but 69 tackles. And what a job Jerome Baker had been doing before the injury. David Long continues the production at the inside linebacker position. And in Jerome Baker's absence, it's been Duke Riley. And that being said, Duke Riley's played well in the run game, but has been exposed in pass coverage a couple of times. So if you're like me, you're probably wondering, what did Mike McDaniel say as far as an update on Jerome Baker? Because he's always giving us the most time-sensitive updates that tell you everything you need to know. So here's what Mike McDaniel had to say about Jerome Baker playing versus Buffalo. Time will tell. Thanks, Coach. We appreciate it there. So time will tell if Jerome Baker is, in fact, able to play against Buffalo. That would be a quick activation if he begins practice today and then is ready to play. But that being said, I think we're pretty confident that he'll be available for postseason play. So show Jerome Baker some love. Type 55 in the comments as we anxiously anticipate his return to the Dolphins lineup. I want to remind you that when Jerome Baker is activated and ready to go, we'll have the latest on you, and that is why you subscribe. So if you haven't yet and you like what you see, subscribe to the largest Dolphins YouTube community on the internet, because when Dolphins news happens, we have you covered. It doesn't cost anything, and if you don't love it, you can unsubscribe, even though it breaks my heart. Now, from one update on the defensive side to the offensive side of the football, Jaylen Waddle. We know he suffered that high ankle sprain in that win over the Cowboys. Did not play against the Baltimore Ravens, and I think you felt his absence as the offense struggled mightily in the second half. And when you look at Jaylen Waddle, sometimes his production is overshadowed by Tyreek Hill, and it makes sense because Tyreek Hill's leading the NFL with over 1,700 yards receiving. But Jaylen Waddle, not too shabby himself, over 1,000 yards receiving in 14 games, because he has missed a couple here and there, has the 4 touchdowns. But the yards per catch is impressive, better than 14 yards. That's the category he led the NFL in last year. And here's what Mike McDaniel had to say about the potential of Jaylen Waddle even playing against the Buffalo Bills. He said, "We got done with the walkthrough, which he participated in. We'll take it step by step. He'll be working with the training staff today. If all signs are a go, we'll give him some practice reps a try later this week." So to me, that actually sounds more encouraging, as I was anticipating Waddle not to be available until the playoffs. But if he can play in that Week 18 game against the Bills, obviously that would be a huge, huge bonus for the Miami Dolphins offense. And speaking of the Dolphins offense, we know they were without Raheem Mostert in that Week 17 game against the Baltimore Ravens, and he did not practice today, but I think there still remains some optimism that he'll be able to give it a go against Buffalo on Sunday. Obviously, that's what he's trending towards. And in his absence, you got to give a lot of credit to Devon Achane. I thought he played really well. And remember, Chris Brooks has been activated off the injured reserve as well. And don't forget about Jeff Wilson Jr. So still plenty of weapons at the running back position. But when you got a guy leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns, who's already set a franchise record in both rushing touchdowns and total touchdowns, that would be nice to have him in the lineup for the most important regular season game of the season so far. Now, want to continue on with all of the necessary news and rumors around the Miami Dolphins and remind you that when breaking news happens, we've got you covered, and that is why you subscribe. So injury updates, live watch parties, and of course, when breaking news happens, we've got you covered here on Dolphins Today. That is why you subscribe.